Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 9.11, and of course we're playing as Japan. And what I'm thinking, at least to me, it's maybe not to you, but to me this is exciting. We're pushing in multiple directions, trying to close pockets and crush things, and it's right now an issue that is still, I would say, in doubt. Obviously, we're not really looking at losing to an all-conquering Chinese army, but we're far from sure in our victory here in any sort of timely manner. You can see here we're being hit hard. They're being hit by Soviet equipment. Okay, that's where these light tanks came from, and they're hitting my units that have best light levels of anti-tank equipment. So yes, I do think I'm going to win against China. It's not like, oh, I think I'm going to lose, but it's not any sort of done deal yet. At least not to me. Okay, we'll do that. Major victory. Well, excellent. Oh good, the pocket's gone. Let's head this way. We need to push deeper in, I think. And yeah, you can head this way too. Yeah. Now, I'm looking like these guys can come here. Okay, they're pushing down that. These guys can push this way. Yeah. We're gonna have to go back on the defensive, I think, soon. Because they're helping this attack here. Okay, they're gonna go over there and be able to join that. Our railway gun is, I think, doing very well for us. Okay, good. And armor unit training is advanced. Been thinking a bit about Japanese armor just because of making thumbnails. Okay, well, they need to get to... Oh, wait a minute. Okay, armor unit command and control doctor. Okay, yeah, so we got to get that one more before we can get that up to... Let's stop that. Looking at trying to get to a little bit more universal type unit that is out there. Artillery. Greater organization. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, they're going to stop attacking. Go on to the defensive. These guys are going to support this attack. Yeah, no. They are. Okay, good. Now, how long until these guys get there? The 24th of May. Okay, because we do have, okay, so let's move these guys forward. I know I was going to combine them with these guys. Maybe we'll combine them with these guys to help push faster there. No, you there. I think we're gonna push. We have a closer command structure. Yeah, good. We're gonna push here into the non-fortified province just to be able to put more pressure on Shanghai directly. Okay, well, they can support that attack, I think. Okay, well, here, semi-motorized. Let's look at the terrain. Okay, pretty well open. Let's come here like that. That would be sort of a nice swing, wouldn't it? They can support. This will hopefully stop this attack and free them up to really start pushing them in. Okay, yes, like it did. Okay, we're back to making some convoys, which is good, but I want looking a little further down the road. I've added another. Oh good, we got 2 mountain divisions. And we've got more of these guys coming quick to help control things. But like I was saying, I've added a CVL. I was talking about the last set of videos, types of carriers, and I got sidetracked, I think, into who knows what at this point. Hope it was fun to listen to. Like you say, you got the CVs, the main carriers. They, you know, are sort of what it says. They're the main fleet carriers. Then you've got the CVLs. These, we could go back to the Langley, which was the first American carrier, and that was a conversion as well. So you can go back there as a light carrier. Generally speaking, CVLs are small carriers, sometimes built on the American Independence class is built on I think it's Cleveland class light cruiser hull. They were making a bunch of light cruisers, decided they needed more carriers, so go, oh well, we can convert this. You know, they had already started making several of them. We can convert some of them, instead of finish them out with guns and the normal superstructure. We can, you know, because they had already built, you know, the basic hull and a lot of the engine room spaces, we can finish them out as light carriers. So they did it, and they ended up working very well. So I like them quite a bit, and they are very flexible. I like them as this, and I was asked, you know, well, I think it was based on some of my talk that I think they should build some battleships again, but aren't destroyers better? Or, you know, if you a bunch of destroyers. And will at what would be a question, and at some things, yes, anti-submarine warfare, because generally speaking, battleships aren't given anti-submarine duties, and even if you give them some, they're still probably not going to be that good. So in some things, definitely a destroyer is better, and you can build more of them for the same cost. Absolutely. And And if you go 10 or 20 destroyers instead of one big battleship, wouldn't that be better? Yeah, it would be better. But still, the idea of having a few big battleships is a very good idea in my mind. Now, notice sort of what I'm saying is a few big battleships is a good idea, where the Nihonian navies, and going back to, because if you look at the original title of the ship, and I know we've gotten distracted from carriers, I haven't totally forgotten that, is they weren't called battleships, they were called line of battle space ships. This goes back to, Nelson and the Napoleonic Wars, and well before it, in which you had these big, huge ships. They would all form in lines and then batter at each other, sailing parallel to each other, at least originally, and trying to sink each other. And that was the main determinant of who controls the oceans. Well, fast forward to, 1905 or whatever, straight to Tsushima, you have the Japanese battleships sinking the Russian battleships on the open seas. Jump forward to what, probably going to get this wrong, 1916, the Battle of Jutland, or Jutland, British battleships battling with German battleships for at least control of the North Sea as the main ships to be fighting. And it determines quality, definitely determines things, meaning if you have, the enemy has ships that could shoot further than yours and accurately hit the enemy, than yours, and could just keep staying, far enough away from your ships, you can't catch them, and they could just shoot at yours. It doesn't matter how good your sailors are, to a degree. I mean, you try to shape the battlefield, but if it's out in the open sea, they can kill you and you can't even harm them. So technical capabilities of ships are important, but other important things are, leadership, quality of the sailors and the naval leadership, but also sheer numbers, meaning if the enemy has a little bit better, but if you have 3 times as good and you can, get into range and batter them, even though theirs are a little bit better, your 3 times as many will overwhelm a slightly better opponent. So numbers do matter. I am not in any way suggesting doing anything like that in a modern term. And there were still a lot of people, a lot of responsible naval leadership in most every major navy in the world at the start and through much of World War II, thought that that was the proper way to control the seas. As time comes on, more and more, especially with the U.S. comes to see that carriers are now the dominant factor, and it's really just that some of the admirals who had gone up, they're not carrier officers. They're not allowed. I mean, after a while, it's sort of made a rule that you had to be an air officer to command carrier. There are a few, Bill Halsey's one of the few exceptions that are allowed. But if you're not a carrier officer commanding, a group of carriers, your XO had to be an air officer. Had to be your executive officer had to be someone who was a pilot, who was a carrier pilot, so they know the capabilities to stand next to you to make sure you're making well-reasoned decisions. And particularly Halsey tried to fight that a lot because his long-term executive officer or flag officer or whatever, forget exactly, your flag captain maybe or something, was a really good working team, and he really liked working, and it was a really good working team, but he was commanding carriers and needed to change over because there was, orders come down from Washington in the Navy to do that. So they recognized that there were some good battleship track commanders that did sort of, get, the importance of carriers and we're going to do it, but nope, fine, you can do, but you've got to have an XO who is a carrier officer, an actual, flight officer. And they had the problem is there were a lot of good flight officers who never commanded any ships. And so they were trying to very quickly get them to at least briefly command something else, like a destroyer, and then move you into a carrier captain, but make sure that you have a really solid executive officer, just somebody who is, maybe commanded some other ships for a considerable time, like a destroyer or whatever. So is a good command officer for dealing with ships. So there was that whole thing. So most all of the what do you want to call them? Career naval officers were all sort of battleship tracked. And so, but realized, and everybody really thought up until Pearl Harbor in the U.S. Navy, the main thing was battleships. Carriers, yeah, they're useful. They're going to help. They're going to play a big part. But it's battleships are going to make the decide who wins the sea. And so that's where all the good people, quote unquote, were going. They weren't all going there, but that's what they thought of themselves. And this is true in the German Navy, in the British Navy, in every other Navy. So, so they advocate for battleships, for battleships, for battleships. I am in no way doing that. I am saying a few battleships would be a very good idea because they still serve a purpose. It would be, in a modern today sense, it would be a stupid idea to try to make a big fleet of battleships, because I think they would be sunk by cruise missiles and carrier-launched airplanes and other things like that. But a few would be really good. So back to carriers. So you have these CVLs, I think, are really great because they don't carry enough airplanes on their, individually to overwhelm the enemy. And in a way, that's what I'm just sitting here thinking I'm in a little bit of problem because I don't know. I've sort of kind of basically decided to end my Japanese series for Hearts of Iron 4 because I lost a naval battle and got most of my fleet sunk. I don't see that changing, and sort of informed, well, you need bigger stacks of aircraft to win. Yeah, well, I completely filled up my carriers and I had other stuff, but it wasn't big. Okay, whatever. I think whether it's Black Ice or Hawaii 4, because I'm not, unlike this game where I can send in specific units to strike specific provinces and will find and engage that fleet, since you're sending aircraft up to a sea zone and it's flying there. So then there's some sort of, and I don't know what it is and I don't know how much because I just haven't looked into it. We could even look into it. How much is concentrate, how much, you're putting up 40 aircraft. How much are making it to the battle? Well, they're off looking somewhere else. No, once we find the enemy, we send all aircraft in after the enemy. They were talking like what Django was telling me. Oh, like 250 air stacks of 250, and yeah, there weren't. Okay, so CVLs, if you had a fleet of them, the problem with them is they carry so few aircraft. If you just make the ships a bit bigger, you can carry more aircraft. I mean, of course you know that, but more aircraft for the amount of ship tonnage and support useful. Meaning, to get the same, to say get three big carriers with all their aircraft, you would have to get I don't know, 8, 9, whatever smaller carriers to do that, and that's going to be so much more personnel, so many more engines to carry to move these lighter carriers, so many more holes, and so it just cost effectiveness having the bigger carriers is better. But the CVLs can keep up, meaning they're just as fast, if not faster, than the main carriers, the big fast carriers. They can keep up with them. And I know like one CVL specifically had its flight crews on the the ship's flight crews, as well as the the flight crews of the aircraft, trained for night flying, which includes meaning night landings on carriers and how to operate at sea at night and how to navigate. Because once you're out there, how do you get back to your carrier? Where is it? There's no landmarks, and you've got a compass, but you've just been dogfighting the enemy, and and that can be a lot of aerial space. You've got to be able to navigate back, and you don't have the luxury of turning on a homing beacon because the enemy was doing night attacks as well. You can't just turn on that. And they did. There was one big thing where they did turn on the lights, and a bunch of regular stuff, aircraft, came in after sunset and landed and had some problems doing so, including a few tried to land on a battleship because they turned on everybody's lights. So some flyers were coming in and thinking it was a carrier, and oops, it's a battleship, and veering off. But they were designed to do it with sort of minimal light, so not everybody in the world sees where the carrier is, and land at night. And so they trained one specific group, and so towards the end of the Pacific War, its pilots would specifically go up every night and fly around, and trade off during the night and come back in, and all the pilots and everybody sleep during the day, while all the rest of the big carriers were doing their normal stuff, and then they would wake up and do their stuff at night again. There's that, but you can also, they're good, so they can support the big carriers. But you can also go, oh well, we've got a task force of surface ships. Don't even need to be battleships. It can be light cruisers and destroyers. But they need some air cover to go do whatever they're going to do. They need to be fast because to keep up with the destroyers. So a CVL is great for that. Or they can go on sort of convoy protection duty, or they can go to invasion protection duty. So CVLs are sort of like destroyers in that they can do a lot of things. Some things they do best out of most ships, like go after submarines, but other things they might not do so well, but they can at least help with it. So they're really flexible. That's why I really like the CVLs. They're just so flexible. Now the third general type of carriers are CVEs. They're carrier escorts. You get the E for escort, L is for light. The CVEs, those were built on very slow basic engine ships. They were they could be used and were often used for going with invasion forces, because a lot of the troop ships and other ships going with them are like Liberty ships and other things that are going fairly slow. So they had some fast troop ships that were often converted fast liners, and liners were designed to move across mostly the Atlantic, but also other oceans, because they were carrying people as fast as practical, because they didn't have much. I mean, obviously there's a little bit, transatlantic flights. So you want to get to from Europe to America or back. Normally, if you go one way, you want to come back at some point, and you don't want to spend a lot of time at sea, and you're catering to the upper, well, realistically, you're catering to the upper 1%, but then you got a lot of the second and third and fourth class passengers down below. They could take a slower boat, but just economies of scale, they take more, but you're trying to do the speed to represent, the first class passenger. So they did have those things, and they did at times take advantage of, for sort of smaller, either reinforcements into a front or into an invasion that they did specifically try to keep them fast. But mostly they were big, slow-moving groups, so you could use a CVE there. Most convoys, these guys are CVEs, because they're all slow. So they'd just be plodding along with the convoy. They would carry roughly, and there were several different models, but roughly the same amount of aircraft as a CVL. Generally speaking, a little bit more targeted for anti-submarine work, because that's what they were sort of set up to do. In Black Ice, which we don't see here, the CVEs, you can get them. I think, let me see, it's been a little while. Carriers. Yeah, here it is. Allows construction of escort carriers, CVEs. So if you get there and get this, and get all the prerequisites, which were not anywhere near there except for the engines, if you get that, then you can have the CVEs. But with Black Ice, who's the only one I think has these specifically, they don't carry any aircraft. So don't think you're building something to put aircraft on them. what they are just sort of super submarine killers, basically. So that's sort of what they do. They improve escort efficiency, also just this tech does, and convoy escort. So that's sort of the CVE in this game. So they're much more limited to what they can do, but so they can't carry aircraft. The third type, or no, the fourth type of carrier is a float plane tender, often called. Some of them, the Germans particularly, and I really like theirs. Okay, it looks like we've won this battle, so let's see if we can just march rapidly down through into here. And although you're beat up, hopefully you won't have to fight anybody. Yeah, let's see if we can rush down into there. That's sort of why I saved you guys here to see what we can do. Float plane tenders. You say the Germans, for their very limited ocean-going areas, they did some really nice, I think, they're sort of slow, but big catapults to launch large German float planes. Not the super big ones, but the fairly big ones. And that's really good for several reasons. Just a basic reason is if you have a catapult on a ship. And the ship was sort of designed to carry 3 big float planes. You could fit 5 on it, but I don't think you could really operate them. It's more for just transporting them that way. But you can only launch one at a time. But so just a basic reason to have a catapult launch is to put them in the air, filled with lots of fuel and lots of bombs, or depth charges or whatever, and get them up in the air without burning a lot of fuel, because there's a fair amount of friction still getting out of the ocean, even in flat, calm waters, you're going to burn a lot more fuel just taking off. But also, because the waters aren't calm, you can take off you can, generally speaking, not absolutely, but generally speaking, land in a bit rougher waves than you can take off in, generally speaking. Obviously, they can get too rough, and obviously you can just hit a wave wrong, even if it's not so bad, and flip the aircraft or something, or tilt it enough that a wing hits the water wrong, and then spins and flips. So yeah, you can do that, but you can take off in a bit rougher weather, or considerably rougher. And anything that you can sort of kind of not be a hurricane or something that's really super strong, you can launch your catapult float plane. Now, it doesn't mean you can land it because the water's so bad. But if you're somewhere out here launching, you're at sea, and does its thing, because it's launching the way, it may be able to get back to a friendly airbase, or even a protected harbor kind of thing from rough weather. But which I don't think the Germans ever had any experience doing, is the Americans had the ability to create a slick, and I think also the British had this. I know the Japanese, at least from reading about it, they don't seem to ever trained enough to have the ability to create a slick. What they would do is having, let's say the waves were coming this way, they'd have a ship going as fast, or basically as fast as you could, into the wave / wind, and so they were coming in, and then they would then they would make a hard turn. Okay, well, the turn isn't like like on a car, a right angle, so it's sort of a gentle thing. Well, what they would do is create a smooth area of not many waves on what was now the side of the ship, because the ship's made a right or left turn, but it's still sort of traveling forward as it's turning, and it creates this slick zone of water, and you don't need a lot of distance when you're landing at sea. You know, you don't need a lot of runway, and you can sort of slow down. Often a lot of these big aircraft had good wing coverage, but you could slow down and land within this fairly short runway, and then sort of, you know, goose your engines a bit and come alongside of the ship. And as it keeps going parallel to the rough waves, so it's keeping the sort of the leeward side of the ship calmer, and in that calm thing, while both they match speeds, and they're sort of strict to it. I think I've talked about this before. They pick up the ship out of the water, so you can, in rougher, again, it's not going to work in a hurricane or something. So obviously at some point, and I don't know the point, the ocean's just too rough to do that in. But if you have the good ones like the Germans did and set that up right, you could take and recover float plane aircraft in a realm. So that's sort of the fourth type. Most of the, at least all of the American float plane tenders that I've seen, they might be able to hoist, generally speaking they could, hoist one float plane onto the back of their ship to do repair work on it there, but then drop it into the water. So they were mostly just sort of ships that carried extra fuel, carried bombs and whatever else, and just sort of tended to them. Where the Germans had the tradition, and sort of where it's coming from, is they had a few ships that would sit out in the Atlantic, and their commercial float planes would fly out, this is in peacetime, and land behind or near the ship. And I don't know whether, and what they had, all of the ones that they did, you would actually drive up the back instead of having a crane lifting them off like the other German ones I was describing. The commercial ones, they had just sort of a you could just sort of drive your float plane right up, you know, a ramp right up the back of the ship. They didn't have a crane type thing, so they would just drive up to. I don't know if they ever really got to the idea of operating with a slick or not, but so they would come up the back of the ship and they would refuel it. Now I don't know whether, you know, and it had to then be smooth enough water for them to take off, because they just let the aircraft float back up and take off. So presumably if it was sort of roughish weather, by the time they land and get there, the flying passengers could stay on board the ship until the weather gets better. Obviously if there's reports, because before you're taking off, the ship is out there and going, you know, yeah, weather, you know, probably, I don't know whether it would be every hour or 4 times a day or whatever. They're probably sending radioed weather reports up to the, you know, to the air base where the float planes are taking off for either North America or South America, because they went to both destinations, just sort of updating weather reports along with other updating weather reports that they were getting to sort of know when the bad weather's coming. So if to halt a a transatlantic flight because of it, because unlike today, we get up into the jet stream, so the weather doesn't matter. It only matters at the airport where you're landing, and if it's really bad, they're supposed to send you to another airport. But hey, yeah. Okay. And so that's sort of the fourth type, is the tender, and sometimes they are capable of being a carrier in time. And Japan did have at least one big, I've seen a model of it, one big float plane tender that I don't know, but I don't think that it had any catapult launching ability on it. Now I say that, and I'm not sure, and I'm trying to remember looking at it, and so I looked at it within the last month, photo of the model, but they definitely, you know, the British, the Germans, the Americans all had catapults on their big ships to launch single engine aircraft. The Japanese had, like I say, this one big one that would, if I'm remembering correctly, it looked like it would hold 8 smaller float planes. But I think that they were just, and it was again a conversion of another fighting ship that was just out of date badly enough that instead of trying to, I don't know, rebuild it too much, they just left a few of the forward guns on it, removed the rearward guns, and turned that back flat area into, you know, float plane things. But these are for smaller ones, basically, I think to drop, drop them into the water, and they take off from the water, and then retrieve them from the water onto the deck, and so that they could operate with, I think, a battleship group that doesn't have designed to be operational with a battleship group that doesn't have a carrier group or a proper carrier with it, but to be a little bit more efficient and effective than just the few float planes on their battleships, sort of augment it and have a bit more of a ongoing trained crew to do it. So the Japanese did do the float plane type, and that in the game is represented by this technology here. So you can see the type of ships that they will give improvement to, and that whole thing is represented by this tech. Okay, armor unit command and control, very good. I think that will then, yes, allow me to do this, which is what I was anticipating doing. And we also have broadcasting advance, very good. We'll stop that. Supply, we should have already been doing this, but yes, good. We'll transfer over to supply transportation. That is a good switch. Okay, new industrial zone has advanced. Very good. Yeah. Using that manpower, yeah. Okay, we'll let that go. It's a long one. It's a 12. Okay, partisan suppression advanced. That's excellent. That is. Yeah, I know I do it all the time for... Oh, here it is. Okay, yeah, we're going to continue this because we want to suppress the Chinese bandits from attacking the Japanese here. Okay, guys, you guys can come down that way. Well, they're moving fast, maybe too fast, just because they're so weak and they just hit the militia unit. Okay, okay, well, okay, they're getting relief there, good. Okay. Okay. Good, we've got that. And they're counterattacking there, fine. Okay, no, these guys still aren't there, but... Well... Okay, yeah, so the 6th. So let's... And no. Okay, we're gonna give up our transport unit. Speed is a thing, but... No, not that. Okay, but... Fort attacking... Because I don't know how bad... Probably not gonna be that bad, but... Getting that in there is more useful now. Probably almost hardly needed, but... When can you... 23 hours, okay. Okay, well, see if we can cut off the Chinese communists from monumental architecture. We'll get another big super building thingy of something. Okay, I know that was all very clear, but I think you get my meaning. A police headquarters or a research thing, or I don't know. Well, we're doing pretty well there. Let's come back to this. We're gonna do that. So you support that attack again. They'll probably counterattack, but oh well. But you're in good shape now. At least you're definitely now helping there. Okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to move this guy here. Allow them to finish their movement to help storm the city and whatnot. Maybe it won't even get there in time. Okay, well, don't want to overbuild here, but with all the stuff that we're going to be holding later on, because I don't know what's going to happen once we can sort of turn this over to the reorganized, if we decide to, versus revolt risks that, because if we just hold it ourselves, the whole territory, I think we will generally speaking have this 1.9 because we don't have any cores here. But if it's occupied territory like this here, obviously we have higher revolt risk. So yeah, I think we will. Let's make some a little bit better than what we have. Some 2 brigade. Police to hold things, because these are all single, which is good for spreading out, but doesn't do as much concentrated. And one more. Because even if we change, you know, if I'm overbuilding for what may be needed for China later on, I don't know that I am. I presume I can use it for holding, you know, Indonesia and the Philippines and whatnot down. So I think having a lot of those Kempitai types. Okay, we're doing good, so we're going to move these to the bottom. You can support that attack. You're not going to be a major player in it, maybe, but... Okay, is everybody here? Okay, they're either moving or attacking or something. But you can support that attack from there. And when can you do something? 35 hours, okay. Yeah, you can attack today, so let's attack today. Get that going. US 7 money for some crude, okay. Okay. Good, we've won there. Well, now that we have some strength here, let's reinforce stuff going this way. Okay. I think that would be better. Yeah, so let's send you attacking there, and you can come down this way. Okay, you're not doing anything at the moment, so you can support this attack. Good, you're crossing there, so yeah, you can come across. Iran, money for crude. Okay. They'll get there and defend the river, I think. And like I said, they did. Okay, yeah, you guys not so much join the attack, but just advance. Flying boat prototype advance. Good. Part of the reason I like things in these games are emotional, and part of them are practical, you know, do well in the game. Flying boats, they spot particularly subsurface, but surface vessels better than flying bombers. They don't attack as well. That's why I sort of like the mix of them. In real life, I sort of like them because they're very flexible, especially if you get to the amphibian types, meaning they can also land on land. You now have an aircraft that can operate everywhere, almost. You know, I say that, I mean, obviously it's not everywhere, but if you've got a big enough river, you can land on the river. If you've got a big enough lake, oh, let's drop these guys over here. Got a big enough lake, they can land on a lake. You can land at sea, you know, so just so many places that you can go. You don't need to be parachute, but let's see. Okay, mountain leader for a mountain guy. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. And yeah, that's the one we just did. And this other one, I mean, battle experts are nice and I like them, and I'm going to put them in charge of my tanks. But, and I saw another one here. Yeah, he does swamps, mountains, and forests. So there we go. That's the right type. Could we get the one extra? No, he's still coming. Yeah. There we go. You support that attack. Right, and now that you're... Oh, you're not doing well. Okay, that's all falling apart on us pretty badly. Don't know exactly why is that. Is it because it's... Well, it's forest. Communist getting some special bonus? Don't know. Okay. And can these guys... 16 hours. Well, these guys who I was going to support there can support this. Yeah, we can all drive into that. Yes, now that we're going to be able to attack with more and more force. Come on down. Oh god, look at that big stack of commies. Look at all those commies. You know, I'm gonna stop this. I could continue it just to pin them there, but I'm gonna stop them. And stop. Okay, we've lost that battle, that's fine. Nobody else is going there. What we're going to do here is, let's grab these 3 units and send them here. Oh, let's send them fast. Hopefully they'll recover from their train trip quickly enough. Let's throw on these 2 regular divisions as well. Because what I want to try to do is to try to trap them and kill them instead of pushing them out. If I can get this province here, they're trapped. And we'll be able to attack from 3 provinces. Or 2 provinces at least to get here. Sorry, not 3, 2. I can sort of kind of count, but sometimes not so well, as you can tell. Ah, we're taking territory, so we're getting more leadership, I guess. Or I didn't pick something. Yeah, single engine aircraft armament. Keep pushing forward with that. Okay, well now that we have our nice armored, well, infantry tanks, not armored division, but infantry tanks coming down here, we can see if we can make a nice little pocket there. Landing craft, yay, been waiting for that, yay, 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 yay. Okay. No, wrong one. Well, I do want to do that, but, so let's stop that because we can just do that. Okay, these are, bow ramps, that will do. Nicely, we'll switch over to that. What are we still doing? Rolling artillery barrages also. That's another good tech to have, but yep. Infiltration tactics. Well, good. We'll switch over to that. Okay, and like I said, we did want to come here because we want to build some landing craft. There we go. Very well may be useful in later parts of this campaign, but boy, we're going to need them out here. Okay, you're not ready to attack. You're not ready to attack. Okay, well, we're gonna keep these guys out of it for a little while, see if they can win on their own. So we still got more cleaning up to do in here. Good, it looks like we're going to get this closed up. You can rush down in that. And we want to get it before these guys can get out of the pocket. Well, no, they're already trying. That's why we've got to rush. Okay, you're attacking just to hold those guys there, and they decided to run away. That is why they're moving forward too. They're being delayed. Okay, infantry tanks, you move this way. You'll stop that attack for sure. Okay. Well, gives us some more stuff to do, but I think we're going to end the episode here. So I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank you for liking the videos. If you haven't already, love to have you subscribe. And please post questions, comments, corrections, questions of any type. Love hearing from you. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.